Welcome to the lABLEd podcast, a show about disability, illness and difference. I'm Lucy and that's Alice.
Hi everyone.
And that's Lola.
So much more than what you see. We all live our lives differently. Kaleidoscope identity. And this is who I'm meant to be. I'm just labelled me. I'm just labelled me.
I'm Alice. This is Lucy. She's our guest for today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Lucy, why don't you just kick things off by telling us what your label is?
So my name's Lucy and my label is the fact that I have cerebral palsy.
Okay. My understanding of cerebral palsy is that it's one of those things that affects your muscles and, you have problems with pain and stuff as well. I don't really know. Tell me a little bit what it's like to have cerebral palsy.
So cerebral palsy, I can speak from my perspective.
Of course.
That my cerebral palsy was caused because I was born 8 weeks prematurely back in 1987.
Okay.
So if I was born these days, there would probably be very little evidence of a disability at all.
Yeah.
But I was born in 1987, and so my brain, when I was born, was starved of oxygen.
Right.
Which, when I was growing up as like a toddler, until I was about a toddler, everybody thought, oh, Lucy's just like a normal baby. She was just prem. She's a normal baby. There's nothing to be concerned about until I was a toddler and I wasn't toddling. I wasn't walking.
Mm. So my parents went to have an assessment to see whether if there was anything to be concerned about. And after various sort of tests and examinations and stuff, they said that I'd got cerebral palsy. Now, cerebral palsy is a big beast. So for me, it affects my muscle spasticity, particularly in my legs. Okay. It affects my balance. I've got the balance of a drunk even when I'm sober. If I was to get out of my wheelchair, I can't sit up straight at all. I have to hold on to somebody.
Really? Right.
That's my excuse. I'm sticking to it.
It's frequently having to hold on to handsome young men. It's only them who can really support you.
Exactly. Big, like, strong legs. But yeah, so it affects my balance. Many people who have cerebral palsy at some point in their lives have had a brain scan to see exactly where the damage has occurred in the head.
Right.
Whereas I haven't had that at all.
Okay.
So we're not overly sure where the damage. We know that it's the legs, but we don't know if there's any other areas of the brain. I'm far more creative and good at being able to create things than I am with the logical side of stuff, numbers and stuff. It's no, just goes in one ear and out the other. So that is, but I mean, cerebral palsy is a big beast. It's huge. So some people with cerebral palsy can be mildly affected and can walk. Maybe they've just got some sort of difficulties with their arms. Some people, it's affected their speech. Some people, it's affected their arms, legs and speech. So it's a huge spectrum, really.
Very varied. Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it one of those things, is it consistent, the issues that you have, or can you get kind of progression where it can get worse over time? Or
this is the thing, really. When I was a kid, we thought that it was just that I couldn't walk and I have difficulty with my fingers. Sometimes I've got sausage fingers. So we thought, oh, that's what we're dealing with. But then as an adult, there's lots of research that's gone into children with cerebral palsy. And there's lots of papers out there that will tell you the symptoms and what you can expect in the varying degrees. But when you get to adulthood, there's no real research as to whether it'll get progressively worse.
Right.
So I know for a fact that my pain has got worse since I've been an adult. I am in far more pain every day now than I ever was as a kid. I can never remember it hurting this much to sit up. So as far as we know, it won't get really, really bad. But you just don't know, really. You don't know. I mean, and there are some days where you wake up and something's hurting, you're thinking, that's a new ache. Is this new, or are you just visiting? Like,
yeah.
do you know what I mean? But, and it affects your energy levels that I never really knew as a kid, because as a kid, you don't think you realize what energy levels are, do you, until you're an adult.
No, you just go till you drop, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And then when you're an adult, it's like, oh God, I need to lie down. I'm often in bed at like 6 o'clock,
right?
Because I've been sat in my chair all day, and because I've been sat in the one position, I'm like, I need to go and have a lie down now.
Yeah.
Because and everybody thinks I go to bed to sleep. I don't. I've got the telly on. I'm listening to music. I'm listening to podcasts and stuff. But I do go to bed ridiculously early. And if somebody says, "Do you want to come out for a drink?" I'm like, "Do I have to? Do I have to?" So yeah, there is this big sort of question mark over whether it will get worse. We don't think it will. We hope it won't. But if it does, we'll just cross that bridge when we come to it. Almost.
Yeah. You said that you, like, people invite you out for a drink.
Yeah.
It's, do I have to? Do you think your social life and your way of kind of living your life is being affected by your cerebral palsy?
Yeah, I do. Because, like, if it's something I really, really want to do, then I'll go, yeah, all right then. I'll push myself to do it. But then, like, for days after, I'm like, I am knackered. I'm not going out again for a week. Like, leave me alone. I want to lie under a duvet and watch Netflix. But it does affect my social life, because I know that other people my age, they're not going to bed at 6 o'clock. They're probably down the pub, or they're meeting friends after work. Whereas I'm just thinking, all I want to do is get in my pajamas and go to bed. And if I think about it too much, especially when I think I'm missing out on something, I hate the thought of missing out on something. So I'll never, if I want to do something, I'll never not do it because I'm tired. I'll just go and then feel tired.
Yeah.
But I like going to gigs and things. So if I know I've got a gig coming up, I'll rest in the day and then get ready like early afternoon and then go out and do it. Go out and do the thing I've got to do and then come back again. So I like, it's almost like storing your energy up, ready to go. Okay, let's go out. It's just about time management, really. I can remember talking to my GP about my aches and pains when I'm sitting in my wheelchair, and he's like, Lucy, if it hurts, you go and lie down. I was like, yes, but I'm like 29 and I've got things I want to do. And he was like, nobody's going to begrudge you if it hurts. And I'm like, no, nobody will, but I'll feel really irritated that I am lying in bed missing out on all this excitement.
It must be frustrating as well to have somebody who's not feeling that pain and going through that to be saying to you, well, if you can't do it, don't do it, when there's a part of you that's like, well, what if I want to do it and I still can't do it. I
mean, I know that them saying nobody's going to judge you for not coming out and just lying in bed instead. I know that that's coming from a place of them being kind. They're trying to reassure me that nobody's going to think any less of me. And nobody does, really. They understand that Lucy has to sit in a chair all day and it hurts. But at the same time, I'm still a young woman and I still want to go and do things. And, sometimes you just have to suck it up and just know you're going to be absolutely knackered for 3-4 days running. It's ridiculous, really. But it is what it is. So,
You said that you do think that your cerebral palsy has had an impact on kind of your social life and things like that. Do you feel like it's had an impact on the sort of choices you've made of the things that you've done in your life? Like, are there places you love to visit but you think, I couldn't do that? Are there things you'd like to try but you think I'd find that too much? Or do you push yourself through to do those things?
Yeah, if I really, really want to do something or go somewhere, then I will push myself through. I'm not a martyr to it. I don't sit there and say, I'm going to push myself through. And I don't say to anybody, actually, I'm really quite tired today. Can I have a rest? I won't say, I'm hurting. Can I have a rest? I'll just keep going and look as if I can remember being at a Christmas party in my own house a few years ago, and my pay all of a sudden, and it comes on all of a sudden. This is the thing. It's almost like my body goes, nope, you've had enough. Bedtime now.
bedtime now, go away, you know, go and have a lie down quietly. And
yeah.
I can remember sitting up in the chair. There were still friends round, and I can remember sitting up in my chair and the pain just all of a sudden arriving. And I'm thinking, I need to go and have a lie down. And all the time I was thinking, please, can you just go home so I can go to bed? And it was 10:30. You can't really say, excuse me, it's 10:30. Can you get out? So I will sit there and I will, it's fine. But then when I get out, when I lie out in bed at night, my back will go into spasm because it's almost like, it's like going, thank you for now listening to us. Do you know what I mean? But I will, I'd never say it puts me off doing anything. Maybe flying, so traveling abroad, I would probably think twice about going long distance. But again, if I really, 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 really wanted to, then I would. I probably would never go to somewhere like Australia or anywhere like that, because 24 hours on a plane, no.
I mean, I think that sounds hideous for me, and I don't have CP, so.
You know what I mean? It's just like, nah. If anything, my CP, I think, has made me more determined to do stuff in spite of it. Do you know what I mean? Because I've grown up with a very loving family. I've always said, you know, it's not about what you can't do, it's about what you can, you know, and they've never told me I'd never be able to do anything. But outside of that, outside of my friends and family, there have been people throughout my life who've said, you won't be able to do that. Which that is fuel for me, because it's like, all right, you watch me, because I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it 3 times bigger than you ever thought possible.
Yeah.
So it kind of, I think having cerebral palsy is almost having like that sort of spurring sort of, I'm going to do this because everybody thinks I can't, and I know I can. I'm not one of these stupid people that go, I'm going to run a marathon on my 2 legs, because I know that's never going to happen. Nor do I want to run a marathon sat down in a wheelchair, really, if I'm honest. So I'm very realistic about what I can do, and I have goals of what I want to do. I've got a list in my head of what I want to achieve. And I know there are some people that go, you'll never be able to do that. And I'm thinking, watch me. So when I was at university, I was very severely bullied because I was in a wheelchair, not just by the students, but by the lecturer as well, which was horrific. And they all said, you're never going to, because my degree was in media studies, and they all said to me, you're never going to, I don't even know why you're on this course, because you're never going to amount to anything. You're just going to sit at home on your benefits all day. Now, since about the age of 8, I've wanted to work in television. I can remember being at school and saying to the teachers at school, I'm going to work on the telly. I'm going to be the first Blue Peter presenter in a wheelchair. And they're all going, oh, yeah, kind of sort of like smiling and nodding. And I'm going, yeah, it's not going to happen though, is it? And I'm not the first Blue Peter presenter in a wheelchair. There hasn't been one yet, so I could still do that if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But I did work. My first job out of university was working for the BBC in BBC Daytime, which is something that I never expected would happen, but it just sort of fell in my lap. And I spent the next 6 months of my life thinking they're going to ask me to leave very politely and say, excuse me, are you Lucy Wood? Can you leave, please? Because this is there's been a terrible mistake. But the way I got my own back on that sort of attitude of you'll never be able to do it. I didn't tell anybody I was going for an interview. I didn't tell anybody I'd applied at college, because I just thought they'd just take the mick if they knew. And what I did do was put it in the last sentence of the last line of my bio in the end of year program for our film that we'd made. It said, Lucy will begin working at the BBC from August, and just left it like that. So it was there.
Yeah.
And I was like, mic drop kind of thing, like, yeah. And everybody's face was like, is this right? I was like, yeah, yeah. So that is, I mean, there is a bit of me that quite like it when people go, you'll never be able to do that, because it just ends, I end up thinking, oh, you watch me.
It's really interesting to hear you say that, because I think a lot of people would say that kind of attitude of going, well, you know what, I'm going to prove you wrong, is, and I know this is a bit of a trigger word for you, but it can be, it's quite an inspiring attitude to have. How do you feel about, being an inspiration?
if I'm completely honest with you, I hate the I word, because I never set out to inspire anybody at all, ever. I never thought to myself, oh, I'm going to inspire loads of people. I just sort of I think I've got a mindset that just makes me think I can set my mind to do anything I want to do. And I think people on the outside think, blimey, she's got all that to cope with, and they can't help but go, she's inspirational. And I'm like, no. I always say that if I can encourage people rather than inspire, I quite like the word encourage. To me, that makes it sound like if you want to sort of follow my lead almost, I would encourage you to do it like this. I prefer encourage than inspire, because I think inspire is putting me on a pedestal and looking at me as if I'm this sort of shining beacon of hope. And actually, even though I might look like I'm positive all the time, I do have days where I think, just leave me alone. Do you know what I mean? So I think having the word inspiring, for me, the only reason it's triggering is because it puts like pressure on me. Do you know what I mean? To be like, I have to be this inspiring person all the time. And actually, I'm just a human being, and I've still got worries, and I've still got anxieties that plague me. And I think the worries and anxieties that I have are probably bigger, maybe. And I mean that in the greatest of respect. Of they're big issues that I'm wrestling with. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, they're big to me, but to other people, they're like, oh, well, yeah, of course I get you. So it's like my PAs. I've got to employ a new PA recently, and I'm constantly worrying, like, oh, will they be nice? Will they like me? Will they turn up? Will they leave me stranded at a train station? Those kinds of things. Those things are going round in my head all the time. And to me, somebody who's inspirational, I think they've got to have a bit of self-awareness about the fact that they're inspirational. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I always think that somebody who is there to inspire somebody knows that they're there to inspire somebody. I don't know, really. It's a really difficult subject to like pick apart, really, and understand why I really don't like the word inspirational. It's just something about it that I just think, oh no, that's not me. I'm Lucy.
Do you think it's because it's well-intentioned sort of fashion? It's just another way of kind of dehumanizing you. It's taking away the loosiness of who you are and saying, well, she's an inspiration because she's a disabled person with goals and achievement. You know, does that idea resonate with you?
I think it does, actually, Alice. Now you've sort of said it, I think that it does, because when I have thought to myself, well, maybe I should accept the fact that people call me inspiring and just sort of not say, oh, it really makes me uncomfortable. And when they've said, oh, I find you so inspirational, it's inspiring, really, and I've said, well, why? They've not been able to give me a proper reason. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, you just are. Well, why am I just inspiring? Surely there's got to be a reason. And it does make me think, are you taking away my achievements and just looking at me because I'm in a wheelchair and I'm sat down and I managed to keep a smile on my face?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it is that. I don't know, really.
I mean, because, you know, if you asked me, I would say anybody who went to uni and went on to work at the BBC, that's a pretty special achievement. You know, for a lot of people, that's something to be really proud of. And there's a lot of young people out there who would say that person has inspired me. If they can do it, I can do it. And, you know, I mean, the fact that you are a wheelchair user and you have been able to do that, it is putting more obstacles in front of you. And it does take more determination and more kind of, I suppose, pressure and ambition on yourself to achieve that, because the cards aren't stacked in your favour.
No.
But I can understand why you would feel like there being an element of, well, actually, you know, going to uni and getting the job I wanted is, for a lot of people, just kind of standard life stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It just so happened that the job I wanted was at the BBC. Do you know what I mean?
It's yeah. And I think it's interesting to me to hear you kind of talk about it and to know what I do know about some of the things that you've kind of done and that you have achieved, is that you seem to feel like there's quite a big gap between the things that you've done and the things that Paralympians have done and that they've achieved. And, you know, you said it yourself about not running a marathon. I mean, there are regular people, folk whose bodies work as expected,
non-disabled,
who couldn't run a marathon.
Yeah. I think Lee Ridley, the comedian Lost Voice guy, he put it brilliantly. He said there's like no grey area for disabled people. There's no, like, you're either a Paralympian or you're inspiring because you've managed to get out of bed. Like, there's no in-between stage. And I feel very, very strongly that I am just like an in-between. I go to work, and yet people find that inspiring that I managed to go to work. It's like, well, you've got a job. Ooh. You know, I go to work, I've got family, my friends, all that kind of stuff. I don't do anything remarkable that, you know, when I'm not here anymore, there's not going to be history books with my name written in them. Certainly if what I've done so far is to go by, because all I've done is work hard like anybody else. That's the thing. And I think there is no grey area. So unless you're a Paralympian, or unless you're sort of like really wanting to be that inspirational kind of person who doesn't mind inspiration porn being made about them and television programs being sympathetic to the fact that isn't this person wonderful because, you know, she's managed to get shoes on in a wheelchair. There's no middle ground. There's none of this, but I'm normal, quote unquote. Do you know what I mean? Whatever normal is.
Yeah.
I feel like a very average person. I go to work, I come back, have a drink on a Friday night, and I'm partial to bread and crisps and ice cream and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing remarkable, I don't think, about me. All the achievements that I've got, they weren't handed it to me on a plate because I was disabled. It's not like somebody's gone, oh, you're disabled and you want a job, here you go. I just think I've worked very hard to get where I am, and I enjoy the life I've got, and I don't really feel that should be held up as isn't this wonderful? Because yes, my life is wonderful, but I wouldn't expect anybody else to think it's wonderful because I'm just me. So
do you think that there is a part of our society that thinks that we are handed things?
Yeah.
You know, and disabled people do have it easier.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, some people think that I get a free car, I get money from the government, I get this, that, and the other, and they go, oh yeah, she's doing really well for herself. And I'm thinking, yeah, if I didn't have to have all this stuff, I wouldn't. Maybe I'd possibly keep the toilet that washes my arse. That's about the only thing I would keep if I was able-bodied, I think. Non-disabled, I should say.
That's an element of something that I want to keep for myself, I think.
Okay,
something very, like, I wouldn't trust robotics to be. Oh no,
it is a bit the first time you use it is a bit disconcerting. And when we had it installed, the amount of friends that were coming to try it out, it was like I should open a ride at Alton Towers, like, come and have a go on my toilet.
Start charging people for it, make a fucking fortune.
Exactly, yeah. No, so there is an element of me that I think some people can get a bit like jealous of all the things I've got.
Yeah.
And I think, well, half of it, if I didn't have to have it, I would get rid of it. Do you know what I mean? It's like I would be a lot less cluttered if I didn't have to have a wheelchair. And people always think that my wheelchairs are paid for. You get like NHS wheelchairs, which are the most uncomfortable bone shakers you've ever sat in your life. And they're clunky and they're just ugly looking and they're horrible.
I mean, I get it. Like, I say to people, you know, I've got a service dog, and I need, you know, I love her. She's an amazing creature.
Yeah.
But she's my mobility aid. and like I wouldn't have her if I didn't need a mobility aid. And people sort of ask me about it, and I'm like, why have a dog instead of using a white stick? And I'm like, fucking free dog, mate. Of course I'm having a free dog. Like,
yeah,
dog whose vet bills and stuff are paid for, that I get to take everywhere with me.
If you're looking at it from the other end of, because I'm disabled, I get all this stuff. There is some stuff that you think that is quite cool.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm not for the slightest. I love a gadget. I get it from my nan, God rest her soul. She loved a gadget, and I think I do too. If I can get anything. So my voice recognition device, I won't say it because it'll wake her up.
My husband calls it indoors.
Indoors, that's the one. Because as soon as I say her name, she'll go, yeah. So when I discovered I could get light bulbs for my...
Oh, yes. Oh, the lights. I love it.
I felt like Iron Man. I want a suit now. Get me a suit.
You know that you can set them so that you doesn't have to be like, she doesn't just respond to lights on.
Yeah.
So there was a period of time in my house where you walked into the living room and you went, Lumos. All the fucking lights come on.
That's amazing. But I did feel very, very powerful. And I do think that technology is brilliant. And if I lived on my own, I would have all of my house completely, like, I wouldn't have to lift a finger.
Well, you made a good start with your fucking magic toilet, haven't you?
Well, exactly. And my household device that turns my lights on and off. And I've got a lift that takes me, so I don't live in a bungalow. I live in an actual house that has an upstairs and a downstairs, and I have a lift that goes through the ceiling, which is quite cool. The amount of people that come around for the first time, like, can I have a go in it? Can I have a go in it? Yeah.
Is it not just like a regular lift, but smaller and in your house?
Yeah, but they think, can I?
These people have not been outside.
Yeah, but they think, can I have a go in it, please? So they have to go up and down a few times.
Has anybody ever asked if they could have a go in your chair?
Yeah, all the time. Or they ask me, can you do wheelies? No, I can't do wheelies. And when I could do wheelies, I broke my collarbone because I was showing off.
Serves you right for showing off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was showing off in front of some boy, I think. And but they're always like, oh, but it's usually when they're drunk. They never ask me when they're sober. It's always when they're drunk and they're coming out of the pub. Can I have a ride on your knee, love? That kind of thing. It's that sort of But I mean, people say, oh, it's insensitive to ask those sort of questions. I find it quite funny that people are going, can I have a ride on your knee? Or I mean, and there have been occasions where members of my family, when I am out of my chair and I'm like lying on the floor or sitting in the armchair, have sat in my chair because that's the only available seat. And as soon as they sit down, I'm like, please don't sit in my chair because that cushion has got my bum print in it and I spent ages molding it, and then they get out and I'm thinking, now I've got to mold my bum back into the seat again. You
need to get one, like a recording of that from Big Bang Theory. It's just like, you're in my spot.
Yeah, can you move, please? Yeah, no, it's but I don't mind. I don't mind. I think in my head there is a limit. I know when people are being mean with their sarcasm. Do you know what I mean? I've become very good at picking out arseholes just by hearing them speak. So I know when something is said with malice. Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, the people I surround myself with, I can take a joke about my disability. I don't start crying as soon as somebody points out I can't walk or I must get really... Somebody said to me the other day, you must get a lot of wear out of your shoes because I don't walk in them. And then they went, oh, I'm really sorry for being insensitive. And I said, no, you're just stating a fact. You're not being insensitive. But I know when somebody says something and I think, oh, hang on a minute, mate, you're a bit out of order there. And I will bring them up on it. But at the same time, I think you have to sort of take a few on the chin. I know this is a very controversial thing to say, but I always think that if I am a miserable old disabled person who is nasty tempered when anybody asks me any questions, then I put that able-bodied person or non-disabled person off asking other disabled people if they need help. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the future.
So it's like, I always see it as a bit of my duty to go, no, it's all right, thank you. Or, you know, I can forcefully say no, but be very polite about it. I don't have to be like, no, get off me kind of thing. But there have been times where I've said, no, I'm all right, thank you. Like they said, oh, do you need any help? No, I'm all right, thank you. And then they've continued to help me, even though I've said, no, I'm all right, thank you. And I've had to get really forceful. But try to not be a arsehole if somebody says something that they might think might upset me. So like I'll say, oh, no, it's all right. But I wouldn't really call me a person with a disability. I am a disabled person. Or, so, you know, if their terminology isn't quite right, I don't bring them up on it straight away until I know that actually they're being a bit of a dick about it.
I mean, this is something that I think a lot of able-bodied, non-disabled people worry about is saying the wrong thing, using the wrong word. I think there's a lot of 50-year-old white cisgendered straight men who worry about talking to anybody under the age of 40 and using the wrong terms about anything. I had to have a conversation with my dad last night about the differences between gender fluid and non-binary.
Did his eyes like pop out of his head almost?
He's got this cat that he was absolutely convinced was a girl, and he took it to the vet for the first time. Turns out it's not a girl. Right. And so it was like, oh, the first non-binary cat. And I was like, first of all, the joke's not very funny. Second of all, this is what the difference between non-binary and gender fluid is, just to explain to you for future reference. And I do think there is an element of, you know, there are people who worry about that stuff. And I think disabled people are way down the list of worries that people have for using, you know, inappropriate terms. I'm learning on a daily basis, you know, because of Twitter and stuff, that there are words and phrases that I've thought nothing of that are actually offensive to people because of, you know, the colour of their skin or the way they identify sexually or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's really interesting what you're sort of saying there, because one of the things that you've said there is about taking it on the chin, and you're, you know, having to take a hit so that someone in the future doesn't take a worse hit.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't stand for that if it was a person using a racist slur. I mean, most of us wouldn't, I would hope anyway. You know, so what is it, do you think, about being disabled that means that you've got to take it on the chin when there are, and I, as you know, I'm talking as a white person, so I do apologize to anybody who might be listening who thinks, well, that's not true, I take hits on the chin all the time. But in my experience is that we are very quick to go, that is a racist term, that is a sexist term.
Yeah. But
you almost never hear anybody outside of the disabled community going, that word's not acceptable.
No, you don't. And I think a lot of it for me is about picking your battles. Because if I was to fight every fire with like the same ferocity as I did the big stuff, I would get nothing done in life. I would be exhausted. Disability advocacy, which is something I am passionate about, is at times like wading through treacle, because you think you're getting somewhere and then 5 minutes later somebody will start an argument about something I've just said. For me personally, people say things to me sometimes that hurt, and I think just you've got to let it go, Luce. And I'm upset for a while, and my family will hear about it, my friends will hear about it, but then after that I'm like, just, you've got to let it go. You've got to let it go and just put it down as a story that you tell at dinner parties to shock people that, oh my God, is society really like that? It's a sad state of affairs that I really do believe that ableism and disability, in fact, is something that society don't take seriously enough. We're like the forgotten characteristic. The disability community are the forgotten characteristic. And often when you hear about diversity lists, disability is always on the bottom of that list when people are talking about racism, sexism, that kind of thing, which is been a bit, it's always a big bugbear of mine, because I'm like, hello,
oh, hello, are we here? You know, there is a lot of the time where you feel like you're fighting this huge battle on your own. And in fact, the reality of it is we're not on our own, because the disability community, as soon as you say something, the disability community are there saying, no, I understand, you're not on your own. But there are times when people say things that hurt, and that there's still things that people have said to me, you know, from when I was a kid, that you think, even now looking back at it, you think that's really quite painful to think about.
Yeah.
Because if I let the small-minded idiots sit for too long in my head, I'd never do anything. And I am not prepared to let anybody else shame me into being any less of a person. I'm not going to let anybody dull my sparkle, because I know how great I am. The people who know me know how great I am. And not everybody is a small-minded idiot, and you have to keep reminding yourself that no, not everybody thinks like that, even though sometimes you may think that everybody thinks like that. Not everybody does, and there are plenty of people fighting my corner who I don't even know, particularly like social media, Twitter in particular. There are people I don't even know that have said to me, like, I don't come into contact with them very often, but they've said to me, like, I really admire the way you're a bit of a whirlwind, and you sort of stand your ground. You're not one of these people that easily backs down. You're not scared of confrontation. Actually, I think I am a little bit scared of confrontation. I don't like rocking the boat, but sometimes there are times where you think, no, I've got to make a stand here, because if I don't, somebody else later down the line is going to get it. So I have to make a stand, you know, and I have to do that so that in the next generations of people like me and you don't face what we have to face. And I mean, I'm not saying that it's the worst thing ever that's happened to us. I know there's plenty of people before me that have gone through a hell of a lot worse, but at the same time, it's still not ideal, you know, and I'm sure you'd agree with me on that. It's still not ideal that I get thought less of just because my legs don't work. I get thought less of just because I'm sat down when I enter a room, and everybody thinks that I'm at a disadvantage when actually I'm not. It's quite a powerful thing to be the only woman in the room who's in a wheelchair. Do you know? And I've only just realised that now.
I think it's really interesting for me as somebody whose disability is a sensory disability.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for me, the idea of sitting down all the time sounds amazing. And I would buy the most expensive over the top shoes that I'd just be like, these shoes they're not for walking, they're just for looking at.
They're just like car to the bar shoes.
Yeah. But obviously, you know, it's interesting because as somebody who actually can, you know, walk into a room on my two legs, and actually, provided, you know, I don't fall over the fucking table, I can pass as non-disabled quite easily. And yeah. I imagine that's, you know, a very different experience to the experience of a lot of disabled people.
That to me would be more difficult, I think. When I am in a situation where I know I'm going to be the only one in the room who is disabled, and I need people to take me seriously and not just like the token who is there. I'm there for a reason, and I'm there on my own merit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get extremely nervous, and I have anxiety about, oh my God, what they're going to think. You know, I make sure that I'm dressed the most pristine looking woman you've ever seen in your life, until a gust of wind comes and blows like wind and rain in my face, and then I look like Bonnie Tyler in a wind tunnel.
That was something I wanted to kind of bring up with you, that statement about being the only disabled person in the room being a really unique position to be in. Yeah. You know, and it's almost a position of power, I think, in the way that you talk about it. Tell me a bit more about sort of how you came to realising that, and what that sort of means, and what you mean by it.
I think it means that if I'm going into a room, it's usually full of like able-bodied people. It's usually for a meeting for something that I need to talk about my lived experience of disability. And I'm often there to talk about my experiences. And I think it's quite powerful that if I am the only one there and I am the spokesperson for the token again, of, you know, Lucy's here to represent somebody with a disability. Nobody can tell me I'm wrong. Do you know what I mean? Nobody can say, well, no, you know, that's wrong, that's wrong, that is. Because it's not wrong. Because if it was wrong, well, it's not wrong. If it's my lived experience, it's not wrong, is it? You know, that's the be all and end. That's the first and the last of it. I'm not wrong because I'm telling you about how I've experienced. And so, like, I had a meeting quite recently with some very high up members in the community. So they were from a local council. We were talking about disabled access to public toilets and how disabled access, I feel, should be made very easy to find on websites. You shouldn't have to ring round and ask, can I get in? Here's the steps up. And the standard response should not be, yeah, there's only like one step, we'll get you in. You know, that's not disabled accessible. If there's one step, it's not disabled accessible. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. I can remember saying in this meeting, how would you feel if every time you left the house, you had to ring round everywhere and explain to people what your needs were when you needed to go to the toilet? And it like floored them. They were like, no, yeah, we see what you're talking about. Do you see what I mean? And that, I think it was that made me think this is actually quite a powerful tool. Before that, I would get really, I mean, I still get nervous when I go to meetings and stuff, because I always think, what are they going to think? And which is a stupid thing to think, isn't it? But it's like internalized ableism, I think, of, oh, they're going to think I'm good enough, or are they just going to think, oh, bless her, they brought along, look, for a day out to a meeting. But I realised it's a very powerful viewpoint to have it as my lived experiences.
Yeah.
And I think I've got away with words that make people go, actually, she's got a point. I'm quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Profound in what I try to be.
If she does say so her fucking self.
Yeah,
profound and humble as fuck. Look at her. Lady fucking muck over there.
It's going to sound awful, isn't it? They're going to think, who is this? But you know what I mean? It does make them sit up and think, actually, and especially if you can speak about it with passion.
Yeah.
Rather than going, actually, it's not so bad, actually. You know?
Yeah.
I think when you're talking about disability and my lived experience, you've got to be passionate, and you've got to speak from how it made you feel, and in order to get it across, because otherwise people are going to go, yeah, well, you're here now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're in the room now. It's fine. You know, everything's all right. Stop moaning. Stop whinging. And it's not moaning and whinging. It's pointing out a fact that everything is 10 times frigging harder for me than it is an able-bodied, non-disabled person.
And I think for me, and again, this is coming from someone who has got a lot of privilege in a lot of other ways. You know, as a straight white woman, there is an element of, I think, that society finds it harder to kind of swallow that, how to make things more accessible, make things more open, more inclusive for disabled people in a way that is, it's almost easier for ethnic minorities or people who, you know, identify with different sexualities from what is kind of that perceived social norm. And I know I'm going to get it in the neck for saying this, because it's a huge sweeping statement, but there is an element, I think, fundamentally, regardless of your gender or your race or your sexuality, if your body works as you expect the human body to work, your lived experience of taking a shit is going to be the same as everybody else's. However, if your body doesn't work the same as everybody else's, if you have an illness or a disability, then it's so hard to comprehend, I think, for other people, how you do everyday things and how they can do anything to level that playing field for you, because your lived experience is physically fundamentally different to their lived experience. The point I'm trying to make is that people find it difficult and people are scared to ask, well, how is that different for you? What is different about this that I cannot comprehend? Because, you know, ethnicity and gender discrimination is an external thing that is put on other people because something about them looks different. And I'm not saying disabled people aren't discriminated against because they look different. Obviously, lots of disabled people are discriminated against because they look different. And there are lots of disabled people who do take a shit like everybody else. But there are also lots of disabled people for who those kinds of experiences are so different. And I think society is scared to ask about it.
I definitely think society is scared of the issue of disability, and that is because I think that is down to the fact that it doesn't matter whether you're black, white, male, female, whatever. Disability can happen to anybody at any time. You could wake up in the morning, go downstairs, get out of the house for work and get run over by a bus and never be able to walk again. And I think to a certain extent, there is a lot about disability that scares able-bodied people. So they're very scared of thinking to themselves that, well, if that happened to me, I don't know what I'd do. The amount of people that have said to me, strangers who've said to me, oh, if I were you, I don't know what I'd do. I'd curl up in a ball and never leave the house. Or other people have had people say, if I was disabled, I'd kill myself, which to me is incredibly offensive, because our lives are no less just because we can't walk. We've still got very full rounded lives. We just do stuff differently. And and whilst I feel for people who've had accidents and have had to learn to walk again, and there must be that complete and utter despair that I don't know how you would get over that, because I have been disabled from birth. I've never known what it's like to walk. So into a certain extent, ignorance is bliss. Do you know what I mean? I've never walked.
Yeah.
I've never missed it. However, if, for instance, something was to happen to me and I lost the use of my arms or even one arm, I don't know how I'd cope, because how do I move myself about in my chair? How would I be able to feed myself? How would I be able to have that what independence I have got? That would be affected. I can understand why disability would scare some non-disabled people.
Yeah,
completely.
But then, you giving that example, you can bet your ass that there's people out there who are wheelchair users with only one arm, and they are going, well, I'm fucking fine, thank you very much. Beer in one hand and then put it down to pick up your dinner.
Exactly.
Instead of shoveling both constantly.
Like what I would do. But I know that's only because that's what I'm used to. I know that if something happened to my arm, I would be going through the same thing that an able-bodied person who loses their ability to walk and needs a wheelchair 24/7 would be going through, because it's the same feeling, isn't it? I always say to people, it doesn't matter how bad things get, there's always a way around it, and you shouldn't just give up at the first hurdle. It might be hard and it might be very difficult, and you might think, I can't do it, but you would surprise yourself at the human spirit. Because I've been through situations in my life where I've thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't, not just like life, but like if I've got a challenge and it's like too mountainous and I think I've bitten off more than I can chew, I have a good old cry and I kick off about it, and then I step back a bit and I go again and I go again and I go again until I'm there and I think, I did that. That's me, that is. I lost my job last year in the most horrific, horrendous circumstances. The way it happened, the way I was dealt with was awful, and it ripped the rug from under my feet, and I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, found a new job that I now absolutely love and adore, and I'm
slowly building my confidence back up again, because it absolutely destroyed me. I look now and I think to myself, I did that. Nobody else did that. I did that. I don't want anybody at my old place of work taking credit for, oh, we let her go. It was, we let her fly, which is what they said to me when they got rid of me. Well, I'm letting you fly. Absolute load of bollocks. But at the time, because I was like, what? That is maybe the case. They did let me fly, but I don't want them thinking that they had any hand in helping me be where I am now, because that was all me. Do you know what I mean? I did it. I found strength from somewhere and built up what I've got now. It's not where I want to be eventually, but I'll get there. Baby steps, isn't it?
There's a big difference between, opening a window, pushing you out and letting you fall, and you deciding, actually, I'm going to fly and stop myself from hitting the ground. Just because they pushed you out the window doesn't mean they had anything to do with you flapping your wings.
So that was our first ever episode recorded. Thank you very much, Lucy.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been so much fun. Thank you.
I really enjoyed, you sharing your story. I hope the rest of our listeners enjoyed it as well.
Fingers crossed, eh? Fingers crossed.
All right. Cheers, guys. We'll see you again.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the lABLEd podcast. If you like the show, please rate, review and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at lABLEd podcast.
Our thanks go to our editor, Adam Hall, our music composer, Maisie Crunden, and our graphic designer, Sarah Coley. We'll see you next time.